crypto is about pattern recognition. You're trying to find out where might the price go. People draw random lines on charts, think that that's the kind of patterns that matter. But I believe it's more about momentum. It's more about capital shifts across markets, but also within the market. So there are measures like, for example, the Bitcoin dominance, right? Or the Ethereum dominance, or the stablecoin dominance. And what those dominances show is how much of the entire crypto ecosystem is currently in a particular asset. So how much of all of crypto is currently Bitcoin? How much of all of crypto is currently in the stablecoins? And this is interesting because very often, besides just crypto expanding and contracting, we also see movements within crypto. As in, sometimes people want to get some risk-on exposure, so they move their stablecoins into, say, altcoins. And sometimes people are more risk-off, right? And they move again their Bitcoin or their altcoins into stablecoins. So there's a flow. There's a flow within crypto that's independent of the price movements. So this is a mistake a lot of people do. They just look at the US dollar prices. They simply just check, okay, Bitcoin gets close to the all-time high, hits the all-time high, gets above it, and so it's now very high, it's expensive. But what might be more important than that is actually how big is Bitcoin relatively speaking to the rest of crypto. Because if everything is expanding, right, when there's money flowing into crypto, but Bitcoin itself isn't that important yet, but the importance is growing over time, then maybe Bitcoin has a bit more upside potential. What we have seen at the beginning of 2021 was very interesting. Bitcoin rose from its prior bottom of 3.5K all the way up to, at that point, 40K or so. And then in the end peaked out at 68K. It rose all the way up to 40K. And at 40K, the rally in Bitcoin slowed down by a lot. Right? Bitcoin still rose to the 68K, but compared to the rally that we've seen before, it slowed down a lot. And what we see at the beginning of 2021 is Bitcoin dominance at that point was very, very high. So the upside potential, the US dollar upside potential for Bitcoin was relatively small because Bitcoin was already so large within crypto. So what happened at the beginning of 2021 is that a lot of people took profit in Bitcoin and then redeployed parts of that capital into the altcoins. And that's then when the altcoin rally really started off. Started off at the beginning of 2021. So what does this mean? It means that it's super important to always watch the dominances and to check where is currently most of the capital flowing. And whenever we are peaking somewhere, whenever we are at historical highs, it might make sense to look at other parts within crypto. It might make sense to potentially shift into altcoins. Now, this is a relatively repetitive pattern. As in, we have seen this throughout the cycles, right? There are several 4-year cycles. We've seen this actually several times. We normally see a recovery from a bear market, first in Bitcoin, so Bitcoin dominance rises. Then we see, as Bitcoin is already high, that a lot of capital moves from Bitcoin to Ethereum. And then we see that capital afterwards, maybe a month or two afterwards, to flow into the altcoins. So as the bull market matures, people get more and more risk on. People move their funds from Bitcoin to the altcoins. This is something we have seen several times. Now, there might be something different this time. Something might be different because this time a lot of the demand that comes with this Bitcoin rally is actually not driven on chain. It's actually driven by the Bitcoin ETF. Now, what used to happen is that people simply bought Bitcoin itself. They're already relatively crypto native people. They might use centralized or decentralized exchanges. And there's not that much of a jump of moving from Bitcoin to other crypto tokens. And so taking profit in Bitcoin in order to then buy another altcoin isn't that hard, right? It's the same kind of crowd that does these kind of trades. But now that the demand comes from the Bitcoin ETF, it's a big question actually what's going to happen. Maybe this pattern that we have seen in all the prior cycles that people anticipate is not going to repeat again. Because now Bitcoin rallies further and further and further, and we see profit taking, maybe those profits will not get directly recycled into the altcoins. Because the people that made profit here were simply just ETF buyers. And they don't know how to use a MetaMask wallet. They don't have an account with Coinbase. Right? They're simply just buying the ETF with their brokerage account. So maybe we see actually a break of this cycle. This is something to consider. This was actually a talk we had within the premium membership. So somebody came up with this idea, and I think it's very valuable. So I think it's very interesting to look at patterns, right? But patterns do not have to necessarily repeat themselves. They're nice to get some kind of thinking around how the dynamics within crypto or within capital markets in general work. But history doesn't have to repeat itself, right? History can simply just rhyme. And if the money that's been made in Bitcoin this time doesn't flow into the other altcoins, then maybe it flows somewhere else, right? Maybe it flows into stocks. Maybe it flows into other risk-on assets. Who knows? But there is a good chance, actually, that at least partially the profits that are being made this time in Bitcoin won't 100% recycle into the altcoins. And maybe this time we will not see this delayed altcoin rally, or maybe just to a lesser extent. So yeah, if you found this interesting, feel free to give this a like. It helps the channel grow, and feel free to subscribe as well. I publish videos regularly. See you next time. Cheers.